Welcome in. It's turn 65, late summer in the year 5 of the Ascension Wars. And. Ooh, did we do it? Yeah, we did it. Victory! So, we claim the Throne of the Moon in the name of Victoria, the Throne of Time in the name of Victoria, and Victoria herself claims the Throne of Abundance, right? And yeah, so there was a bunch of battles, right? Because I kind of just said things every which way, and there's a couple that I think are worth watching, just kind of for funsies. But we'll get mostly into the score graphs, I think, and talk about all the nations and kind of our overall journey. But let's bask in our glory here for a second. So victory, reign supreme. Victoria, you are the Pantocrator. Your enemies are cast down, broken, dead, enslaved, or imprisoned. You are the sole author of fate. We summon the tides, dictate the seasons, give or withhold fortune in life, and light up the sun at dawn and quench its fires at dusk. All move according to our will. Endless eons pass. But then, at some unknowable time, there is a change. Something stirs in the void. Perceive something reminiscent of ancient longings and doubts, long forgotten, perhaps suggestive of a sight unseen or a tune unheard. What is this thing, this longing, this faraway, fleeting enigma? You lift your presence from the world, ascended from the thrones, and rush into the void, racing after that receding, beckoning something. Born on wings of absolute authority, you race further and further away, chasing that sole thing that you do not understand, still further away. Leaving the world behind you, it becomes a fleeting memory, a distant dream, a tune unheard, a sight unseen. Down on the world you left behind, old servants and enemies feel their chains loosen. Doors, though forever shut, slowly creep open, and ancient things, long thought dead, stir. The thrones sit empty, but hungry eyes have turned their gaze upon them, sensing a new dawn. Very cool. We love it. We can watch history here. I kind of forgot that this existed. Oh shit. Okay, it doesn't have the month, but it has the time of year, right? Uh, it's kind of too bad Atlantis and our color are so similar, right? So yeah, we did pretty good in expansion, it looks like. I mean, we're into second war here. It's going pretty fast. Uh, yeah, I wish we could pause the screen. It's great to see the borders this way. And then yeah, we take on Famini pretty quickly there. Pretty fun, pretty fun. Yeah, so just based on this map here, we seem to be definitely the biggest. Um, oh, this is includes Dominion. I see, I see. Yeah, because I'm like Arco's way bigger, but they did not spread their Dominion everywhere, right? But yeah, okay. So we can go to our map here, and yeah, we can see our Dominion is is pretty strong. When we look at the graph, we'll see that we led in Dominion for most of the game. As far as battles, well, we got to check out a couple and give kudos here. So we send in our newly minted King of Elemental Fire, right? And just one little mage here to point buff him. I decided not to bring in the Flame Spirit. And there were great eagles here, which I think we knew about, but I think I forgot in the last turn. So he still gets Phoenix Pyre off, right? Which is good. And let's see, so patrolling with a pretty big force here by Dromon. So a good thing we didn't clash earlier. I mean, 3 Ryujins, bunch of mages. I don't know if they've been patrolling every turn, but they haven't found our scout. Did we have a scout here? Maybe we even didn't, which definitely was a misplay to see if they were patrolling. But regardless, we're not going to get off our fire elementals, it looks like. But with the Ring of Regen, right, plenty of hit points, like, these troops aren't scaring us. But there's some mages casting. They got some flight there. Foul Vapors is up, right? And we do not. Well, we have decent poison resist actually. And then, oh, what happens? we stop fighting here? Oh, enslaved mind. So the King of Magma actually gets enslaved. Very fun for Jomon here. If this had been, if we didn't secure victory, this would have been very depressing for us and very exciting for them, right? And it says 18 magic resist here, but we did get up to 22 magic resist before being enslaved. So pretty good roll on the enslaved there. And they didn't have any penetration gear or anything, so just a very good roll there to get the enslave off, and can be good against even decently high magic resist, right? So very cool for Jomon there. And then they started employing some golems, so another good reason for us to rush him, because so here's one of our astral travel armies, right? And probably should have had the lines a little further forward. And but here's Percival, the Pocket Knight, right? He's not as impressive as I thought he would be. I mean, he's got pretty high protection, 24 hit points. Apparently, he does not have a separate mount, right? He's just like a statue thing, right? Makes sense. He has 5 fire resist, 15 cold resist, 25 poison resist. So vulnerable to shock damage, right? No regen or anything, no magic weapons. Just kind of a knight. So I don't know if that's worthy of an artifact slot, but cheap in terms of gems, right? And yeah, so there was a golem here that also magic phase, because it wasn't there before. A couple Ryujins, those Onyo G's, right? And we cast Time Stop. And then it's kind of up to our Prester King what he casts next, right? It does get Will of the Fates up, right? We scripted that. On 3 speed, it's so slow. So I think, so it goes pretty fast, and I think he was tired. Yeah, he's very tired. So when not in communion, right? Time stop and those other big spells, like he's not gonna get to cast as many. And yeah, so here comes the Golem, and he's get it out kind of how we Kai ours, except with the Burning Pearl here for better attack, which is smart. Golem on Golem action, right? He's got 18 attack with the Moonblade. Doesn't have a Smasher still, but we didn't bring our Golem here, right? So, and no acid resistance, right? But our Green Lions, they kind of blow their load a little too soon. And then, attacking other things, and then by the time they get in here, like, Chains of Reconstruction, he's just fine. And yeah, another win for Jomon here, so... Again, kind of a vanity battle, right? Just to do astral travel and get our Green Lions into a combat. But it seems like, Jomon was still gearing up to counter us, right? Because then we also see where we magic phase. They had a single Ryujin here, and we magic phase our Golem, and they magic phase. And so probably as bait, right? Knowing that we might do this, but we only bring 1 Golem this time instead of multiple, right? But our buff script's only 2 spells long, so we get in here pretty quick after Gift of Flight goes up, right? Should be coming in any sec. But the Golem only casts 2 spells. Oh, he does cast 3, but we take time to fly, right? And so since we're scripted to attack flyer, we go after the Ryujin here straight away, and the Golem gets in some extra hits on us before we can kill the Ryujin here. And again, we saw that they had the Mirror of Long Lost Battles, right? Pretty familiar. And so we do kill the Ryujin pretty quick, but, Quickness Golem with Burning Pearl takes ours out. So another good trait there for Jomon. And that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, we lose a battle here as well. I forget what we bring in. But they were patrolling this fort as well, again, a bunch. So they still have access to a lot of Ryujins, and you could have spotted them recruiting more on the Lake Province. So this was just kind of a little raiding party. I expected PD, right? Not a big patrol, but it is the last turn, so why wouldn't they either patrol or attack, right? So they win here as well, unsurprisingly. Let's see where our Eagles go, though. Oh yeah, we have the bodyguard commanders, so they actually fly around 6. Oh, they're distracted. They're fighting something. Oh, right, Ryujin flies in. I'm surprised we don't kill it. It has very good protection with the Armor of Knights, right? And looks like it got another buff there, protection buff. So we don't even fly back. Do we kill it? No. Nope. We get messed up pretty bad. And then I believe all of our other assaults were effective, and I don't think went up against anything exciting. No. Dragon Point? There was a couple mages here. Oh yeah, they attempt their illusion trick again. It doesn't work. It only worked 1 out of 4 times, I think. Oh yeah, and they assaulted with some ninjas that failed against PD. And that's pretty much it. And Atlantis, they didn't do anything. And actually magic phased here just to prevent any attack at all on Scraw Point. And so yeah, Andromania didn't attempt to come into Valkes here. There was after I recorded yesterday's turn, there was a bunch of discussion on the Discord because people saw that we took the thrones and they're like, can anyone do anything? And Andromania's like, I don't even, they didn't have a scout here apparently, and so they didn't see what we had, and they're like kind of just I think ready for the game to be over at this point, and we're happy to like give us the GG. And Arco didn't have anything that was available to come into Scraw Point there, so. And regardless, we get up the Wizard's Tower, right, and had a pretty good setup, I think, even if this whole army and the golems came in, right, because we were scripted to do Wrathful Storm and Wrathful Skies Storm, and with our smashers and whatnot, I think we would have been just fine. It's unfortunate we didn't have like more of a big climatic kind of battle to show, which is I think the only kind of regret with Jomon not using their bigger armies, right? But they were still retooling, and like we're likely to have some success and probably set us up for some traps, right? Like they did in Rim Mountains here. And so then we would have had to retool and so on and so forth. And we probably wouldn't have thrown away our King of Elemental Fire, but maybe we would have. And yeah, so I think that's everything to discuss here. And so let's check out some score graphs and talk about other nations and whatnot. So we now have the complete picture, and it's kind of messy to look at, but we can see. We'll go through everything from our perspective first, I think, and that even from, again, I wish Ilwinter would at least put in year markers, if not month markers. So we just kind of have to guess here. It's been 65 turns, right? But we did pretty well in expansion. Well, here maybe we can see. We're gonna have to click these off one at a time here. If we just look at Pythium. So it looks like we started fighting Pythium around this time, right? And so we could consider this expansion and through the first 14, 15 months or so. And we did very well, right? We outpaced our competitors by at least a few provinces during the expansion phase, which we recognized and was kind of flavored my whole... So big picture wise, Dominions to me in multiplayer is there's many factors that lead to success, right? And some are purely luck, like who are your neighbors, what is your cap circle like, what do you end up having access to, and so on and so forth. But it's primarily about choosing your targets and the timing. Like you want to control as many engagements as you can. And so when you do well early, you become a bigger target, right, for people and can be coalitioned. And so my whole, as we could see, that was always kind of the case. And I was always kind of worried about what other nations thought of us and if we were going to get coalition for being too big, right? And so with Pythium, like we kind of straddled that line where we got bigger than everyone else without getting too big. Like if we also took over Marignan, right? Like we debated that for a while, and or if we went after Zamatia instead or something, and just got way too big too fast. But we were big enough that we could then leverage some peacetime and some kind of just skirmishes with Atlantis and Famini, which eventually turned into, a takeover where we really skyrocketed. But we kind of were viewing other people then expanding as well, right, in their wars, and then keeping pace, or trying to, outpace them, but not too much. If that makes sense. Little bit of rambling there. Um, but yeah, Arcus Volley skyrockets when they go up against Ulm, right? But they had a much slower start, right, until they attacked Marignan. And so we were able to. They became our kind of obvious competitor towards the end game, right? And luckily we had such good relations with them. And they were busy with Ulm regardless, but uh, we were able to leverage our early economic advantage by just getting up a ton of infrastructure. So Arcus Valley, they did jump out there for a while with in terms of forts, which actually surprises me. But they had peacetime for a long time early on, so they put the income that they did have towards infrastructure, right? Because as we see here with income as well, like we outpaced everyone for most of the game. All overtakes us just a little bit there, and but then we slowly kind of jump out in front, especially with our conquests, right? In terms of forts, Ulm was always very high as well. Even after Arcus Valley started taking their forts, right? And then yeah, Jomon kept building forts as the game went on as well, and Andromeda kind of stagnated there. And then in terms of gem income, this was very interesting to me because I felt like we were site searching like crazy early on. We didn't have much luck early, and our luck did increase kind of yeah in this period. Um, but it is late age, and most people did around the same, in terms of like the powers of the game. Uh, and then of course like Andromania, once they did Arcade Nexus, just an insane influx of gems, right? And then this is when they lost their pretender, and it just woof. So this was their gem income from their provinces, which was, looks like they spiked here when they cast their first globals, right, as well. But their province gem income wasn't that good, and we didn't have any globals, and so we just relied on taking territory and site searching as much as possible. And we went up there, of course, with our conquests closer to the end, and then just looking at Ulm here, this graph's pretty hard to read without figures, right, of how many blood slaves they had in the end, because no one else was a blood nation, and so a few folks had a little bit of income, but it's hard to know how much Ulm was really blood hunting. But they had some spikes there. And then here's the real victory, is our research, right? So everyone starts off very slow, of course, and as soon as people start to take off, we leave everyone but Famini behind. And since we outpaced them in those other factors, like they couldn't keep up, and yeah. We had, I don't even know how many level 9 researches by the end, right? But it was quite a bit, and I'm just like, I'll research whatever next kind of thing. And so we probably could have been more aggressive early on, but again, like just thinking about being too big, like there were multiple moments where I had that conversation with myself where like I should be more aggressive right now, or there's a weakness here, or yada yada yada. But that was always the concern of kind of towing that line. And then Dominion, we expected to be strong, right? With our popes, and I mean, yeah, we almost double by the end the next biggest in terms of Dominion, and we ended up with Dominion's strength of 9, and we've had it for many many turns. And the only reason it's not 10 is when Victoria died, right? She, instead of losing a magic path, she lost a Dominion, so it could have been 10, and potentially even higher. And then army size, yeah, almost always just huge. All those free spawn wolves, I think, just contributed a ton to this. But they also just had big armies, and Arcos Valley was always pretty big as well. So despite them not being huge early on, they had a very good economy. I wonder if were they the ones that ended up getting all that early farmland we had talked about. And then Ascension points, of course. Took that early lead. We stayed steady for quite some time. Then Arco jumped ahead with their two level 3 thrones and our little throne rush at the end there. And yeah, let's see. So converted provinces 78 is quite a few. Dominion Strength 9, right? We ended up with 23 temples and 45 spread in all, but that's in large part due to the level 3 thrones we just picked up, right? That ending number. But yeah, our Dominion was pretty good. And so other nations, so Pythium, right? They didn't utilize their sacreds or their hydras, which I think could have been a difference maker for them early on. Like we did consider those factors, right? And the AI like showed the effectiveness of their mages on advance and cast in a few instances, and we were a little impatient there, right? Trying to get the dom kill, and that's one thing where if we did not allow Ulm to negotiate for this territory, and we're just like no, and even fought them, like we could have dom killed Pythium way faster and avoided those losses, right? That we had. But we just kind of picked our first target, I think, pretty well once we saw their virtue go down, right? It just made sense, and we had naps with Arco and Zamatia, or sorry, Marignon and Zamatia, and so it just made perfect sense. Even though in hindsight, like Jomon was a pretty big threat, and we ended up doing very well because we picked our terms of engagement, right? But they almost went to war with us twice in the past when we would have not been as equipped to deal with Ryujins. And now at this stage they're more equipped to counter our counters, right? So we kind of just snuck in the sweet spot there. We still have to deal with Murdering Winter, but in hindsight, if we had to do the whole thing over, I probably would have taken that army that we used to take this throne and just attack Jomon early, because I think the sweet spot to attack them would have been before Murdering Winter and before the Ryujin research really came online, right? So in that kind of first war zone is probably the best time to take them on, and the times they chose to attack us probably would have worked out for them, or at least been a much more pitched battle, right, back and forth. We never really had to play much defense. Like Pythium never really got to go on the offensive against us. Atlantis, they just kind of took a few territories up here at one time, and Femini, they declared war on us, but just kind of probed a little bit on our borders, and Jomon as well. They didn't do much offensive, so we didn't really have to fight defensively, which with our slow moving armies could have been much harder to do. We'll probably come back to Jomon, but speaking of Femini, yeah, they had great research, right? And so I was actually very surprised that they didn't utilize their I should probably be looking at their screens, huh? They're veiled ones here. They're just fantastic raiders, and I really expected them to raid us in the opening turn of the war, right? Like, and if I were playing Femini, that's exactly what I would do. I'd leverage all the research we had in our bigger armies, and then just raid with tons of veiled ones, because even it's cap only sacred, right? But if you're just recruiting them all game, or at least from after expansion on kind of thing, they could have alpha striked, I don't know, 10, even 20 provinces by the time they declared war on us, right? Because against low PD, you don't need that many veiled ones, and even if some expand or some raids fail, like you can still deliver a very big alpha strike. But they did have good research, and we were just able to counter their golems and kind of take our time and dismantling them, right? And then Atlantis, I think, is probably the biggest miss or like bullet dodged for us. Like when we first went to war with them, right? I'm like, okay, here we go. This is it. Like our big rival, right? But they were just probably because of their poor expansion efforts, which we don't know why that happened, right? Whether it was aggression or they had some failed parties or whatnot, but they just remained passive for the rest of the game, and we kind of just avoided having to deal with their strengths for the most part. And then when we were ready to come back after this throne, there was no chance they could have stopped us. And yeah, if we were Atlantis, they didn't seem to have cold scales. They probably wanted the extra points and went to neutral, because a lot of the time their lands were not cold. And Probably should just always go cold 3 with Atlantis. I don't think the points for them are worth the drawbacks, right? Because their ice troops are very, very, very strong. And then you combine it with, the cap only mages and it could be pretty effective. And I think they just should have been more aggressive, especially when, we did sign our short-term nap and like all this Femini land was just wide open to them, and they very slowly took a couple provinces, and they could have done that much faster, and maybe uh, they probably wouldn't have broken out. It was too late for them, but could have made it a little more interesting, right? And who else? Okay, so Midgard, we didn't really see anything from them. They got jumped on relatively early by Andromania, and has quite strong troops and armies, right? And speaking of, yeah, Andromania, like until they lost their pretender, like it's too bad for them that they risked it into that throne battle, because it wasn't necessary for them at the time. Maybe they felt like they needed to take a swing, but between their armies and that pretender and just all the gems they're gonna get, like it would have been better to hold up and just leverage tons and tons of gems. I mean, this is just an absurd spike, right? Like twice as many gems as everybody else, more or less. And the more gems other people spend, the more you would get with Arcade Nexus. And so if they just protected their pretender and only used it as a last resort, like I was afraid of them, right? I was afraid of coming in anywhere near this throne, or I knew we needed to have the Wizard's Tower ready to go, right, against their pretender or just their armies. And but once they lost their pretender, and had Jomon had given them some losses as well, like I think their heart just wasn't in it anymore, and understandably so, right? It did take them out of contention, but they could have been right up there, right? Because, everyone went to war with them because they caused a global incident with Arcane Nexus, and rightfully so, right? If we were their neighbor, we likely would have as well, and coalitioned and asked other nations to do it. Um, but once Arco went after Alm, like they were fine 1v1 Jomon, at least to a stalemate perspective. And then, of course, we got involved later, and they would have been just more than fine. But things had already changed by then. And yeah, so they had a great early game, I thought, right? Like they expanded decently well. Let's look back at the score graph. Let's see. So not great. I would expect them to have a better expansion. But they vultured very well, right? They vultured both Pythium and Zamatia, and got relatively big. I always thought they were a little bigger than Arco early on, but it looks like they were smaller. And then, yeah, we saw them struggle against those super combatants, right? And their vampires got soul slayed, which is what we would have done as well to them if we fought, right? Which we consider, and I think we're a very good matchup against They were using their sacred, right? And with our Baculites, I don't think we would have had any trouble just taking it to them, and they probably didn't have an answer for Virtue, right? We saw they didn't have an answer for Arco's Pretender, and ours eventually got even stronger than what we saw from Arco's Pretender, right? But they could have been pretty fun to fight, I think, with all their big Doom stacks, and we would get all our big Communion buffs off, and also have super combatants available and stuff. That could have been very fun, I think. But they played well. They just didn't have an answer for Arcosafale's tactics, right? Strategies, and they couldn't hang on there. Uh, who else haven't we talked about? I guess Arcosafale themselves, right? And yeah, I think they're a very good player from what we've seen. Like, oh, Nexus. Oh, cool. I've actually never seen this or cast this myself. You can recruit things here. You get income as well. Astral Pearls, alteration bonus. Very cool. This is so fun. I love Dominion so much. Like I'm still discovering so many things. Shadow Seer, very cool. Okay, but yeah, at some point we saw a Grey Knight in battle, or a Grey Lord or something, right? But yeah, I thought that was from an event or whatnot. Very cool. Could we have cast Nexus? I can't remember what it takes to cast it. I know it's an astral spell, right? Astral Earth, I believe. Uh, but yeah, great player, and they're ramp up into their big offensive was just too slow, right? We were ahead for so long that we were more ready to throne rush than they were. But if we gave them another, they were probably very close to taking this, right? They'd had an army here for a while. But that's not even where a throne was. They already got these two thrones, right? If they continued to go after this throne, it might have taken them a while. Um, but Ulm still had a big army here, right? So they would have also had to have gone either against Jomon, right, to take their other level 3, which we didn't even push for, right, or to the thrones that we took, and they probably had plans to do that, but I would guess 6+ turns at least for them to pull it off. But it could have been faster. Could have been faster because they had access to magic phase and whatnot. Uh, and if we had to fight them, like, it, it, it I think it would have been really fun. We had one-on-one golem fights where we were victorious against Femini, right? And so we could have jumped on them with a couple of those as well. But then they would have prepared for that and tried to counter us, and we probably would have gone back and forth and um, maybe had our super combatants clash at some point, right? Our pretenders, and it could have been pretty fun. We both had air magic on our pretenders, right? They were partial to doing Wrathful Skies. Uh, but based on proximity and good relations, right? We just never even had to really consider fighting them. And earlier on we thought we might go after Ulm's thrones, but being that they were just level 2s, we had better access to independent thrones and a better war target in Jomon being more proximally close, right? And just more of a natural enemy. And yeah, as far as otherwise for Jomon, I think they could have been more aggressive earlier on. Um, I'm not sure. We didn't catch when they got involved against Utgard. They were very close to the capitals here. It might be the two closest capitals on the whole map, I think. Um, and so they could have been skirmishing and we just never saw it. But it seemed like from our perspective, they got involved late, like after Femini and Utgard had been fighting for a while, and they didn't take that much territory um, from them, right? Like Femini took here in the cap circle, uh, and and so they stayed pretty small, but they got plenty of water provinces, and I'm surprised they didn't build fortifications here to get even more Ryujins. They probably started running out of income, right, with their big standing armies that they had to have upkeep for, is my guess. And but they did have a lot of troops at the end, and so yeah, we do wish that they kind of decided to leverage those, but we probably would have super combatant them, right? With Virtue. Like I did leave Virtue in one of these provinces for quite some time. Like she was just casting Breath of the Desert, right? But I was keeping her as an ace in the hole to magic phase onto an army. Like that's why I kept scouting these two provinces to see if Jomon moved into them, right, with their big army to see if the composition was so we could magic phase Virtue. So in that sense, it's smart to stay pat, but then you're just paying all this upkeep, and we were able to just kind of freely commence with our theater project of being at war with Jomon while we planned our final throne rush, right? Who have we not talked about? Uh, let's see. Oh yeah, Marion. I think they got just a short end of the stick by being jumped on so early by Pythium and Samacia, right? Because they also seemed like a good player. They fought back from a very bad position, I thought, and almost bounced back entirely. If other people didn't get involved with that fight, like Ulm pushed into Zamacia after they were done raiding or Vulturing Pythium. They just immediately kept moving those armies, which is very smart. It almost had a very good war plan for those first two wars of theirs, right? Like they chose the time of engagement against very weak enemies that weren't able to hold up much resistance to them, and and I can't remember exactly when Arcus Folly finally jumped on Marianne, but it was close to around that time, right? And so they just got attacked on all sides. Even we were gonna threaten to attack them and took some territory, right, to connect up Hubbardton. But uh, it would have been interesting to see if they were able to just 1v1 and have no one else get involved. They would have eventually beaten Samacia, I believe, and maybe become a power in the late game, but they still would have been relatively small. Uh, and who else? Oh, yeah, Utgard themselves. We saw a couple big battles from them, but again, they kind of got jumped on. It looked like they pushed back Famini in that one early big battle, and then it seemed like they didn't quite have an answer for anything else. But we didn't see much from them, and yeah, Zamatia themselves, cool nation. Being that they're so new, I'm not surprised that it was hard to pilot them, right? Um, but I am curious to watch other people play Zamatia or to play them myself because they do on paper seem pretty strong. They have their drawbacks, like the Moose Knight. You're not going to get many. They're very expensive. But they are powerful, and they do have other troops that are good, including foreign recruits, right? And some strong mages. But I love glamour magic, so yeah, I think that's pretty much everybody. And uh, yeah, I love our little horde men. I love Victoria. Piconye's been really fun to play. If I had to think about like things I would do differently, I think early on something that sticks out is I my instinct was to go for Gifts from Heaven, right? Is one of our first early targets, and I pivoted away from that, and I wish I had not, because I think my fear of it having friendly fire was a little overblown when we did start using it. Like you could script three or four of them, and there's unless they had flyers, there's basically no chance of them hitting your own troops, right? Especially with our slow moving troops. And it probably would have been pretty effective against Atlantis and that big fight that we lost when we went on the offensive. I mean, it might not have won us the fight, but it probably would have killed troops. And if it did land on a couple of their mages, like definitely could have turned the fight before all our troops tired out, right? From the frost battlefield wide spell and the swamp one. I can't remember what the spells are called. So that sticks out to me to lean on Gifts from Heaven a little more. It's very powerful. I mean, we saw it kill Pretender, golems, and all kinds of troops and stuff, right? And even if it did hit some of our troops, I think it still would have been worth using much earlier. I think we played diplomatically pretty well and chose our times of engagement. We made our mistakes along the way, right? We probably could have used Virtue a little more aggressively as well. Uh, and maybe even dodged a bullet when she did die. She did not lose a magic path, which was probably for the best. Where is she? So if we had to redesign our Pretender, I might even go up to Fire 3. I'm not sure how many points that would cost, what it would cost us to do that. But we got kind of lucky getting so many death gems, right? And without that, we wouldn't have had access to any kind of fire booster. And we used Breath of the Desert a few times and probably could have even used it more. And then she could have natively summoned flame spirits as well, right? Which we didn't really utilize, but it is a nice option to have, because if we went down to one fire, that could have been pretty bad. You can no longer cast Phoenix Pyre, right? Which is pretty powerful. And so it's a little extra insurance there if you want her to be aggressive and she does lose a magic path. She'd only go down to 2, right? If she goes down to 5 air, it's also wouldn't be that big of a deal. Um, we could have been more aggressive with her just in general when we did choose signs of aggression. And maybe we could have dealt with the necromancer a little earlier. uh, but we ended up benefiting from those gems in the end, and yeah, we ended up with a ton of gems. Just in case our Thorn Rush failed, I wanted to be able to just pump a lot of things out to try again quickly. So it didn't, and we did actually burn a fair number of gems last turn, just doing needless astral travel and battles and stuff that we didn't have to. So tons of gems to work with that we could have leveraged or just converted into astral. We could have gotten more golems, more gear, more super combatants, right? Another King of Elemental Fire. We could have started getting Queen of Elemental Airs, right? We had plenty of air income now as well. I think we even got up to uh, I think we only got up to a 4 water mage with boosters, but where is that guy? Because one of our water mages ended up getting one of the pearls, right? Yeah, here he is. So just water 4, but maybe we could have crafted a relic booster and even gotten some more water toys to play with. Uh, and yeah, the relics was really fun to play with, I thought. I've never built my own artifacts in a multiplayer game before, just prioritize other research, right? And so we ended up crafting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, we were gifted 2, but we crafted 8, right? You can only do 1 a turn. Uh, and there's so many artifacts. I had fun looking through all the options, but there's just so many. Like I couldn't tell you if there's other good stuff we should have built or not. Obviously, the horror harmonica is very strong, but we wouldn't have been able to craft that, right? Not even close. What was the missing tune? Another glamour one, right? Yeah, pretty powerful. But it was fun to deck out for Chew and just get some booster access that we wouldn't otherwise have, right? We could have cast some globals, like we had access to Nature Fives, um, but preferred to save those gems at the time we could have casted them. And again, just to kind of stay off the global stage by not casting any globals, our threat level stayed lower, right? Because we had the most provinces, but we didn't have the most thrones for most of the game. We didn't have any globals, and so our and Piconye is not considered like some superpower nation, right? So I think we really balanced our threat level versus opportunity pretty well, and leveraged what we did have into the victory. So it's been a fun of ton. If you've watched this whole series, I can't thank you enough. Like a huge commitment and just a huge honor to have you with me. And I hope to do more Dominions content in the future, right? Because this has just been a total blast, and um, it makes me like think about the game a lot more and pay attention to things I probably wouldn't if I was just playing by myself in my room, right? So thank you. Leave comments. I'd love to have more discussion with folks, and tell me what you think about Piconye, and if you've had success with them, I'd love to hear about what your approaches were and thoughts on the matter. So imagine that, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.